Terraria's legacy versions were something quite special, including an assortment of exclusive content such as weapons, armor, and even bosses. As many of you know though, unfortunately this didn't last and was pretty much all discontinued around the 1.3 update in an effort to create uniformity between platforms. And while this was tragic to see, luckily with the power of modding, we can bring some of this content back to life. Today, we're going to be looking at a last-gen console-exclusive weapon that back in the day was extremely sought after. Of course, I'm talking about the Tizona. Now, for some of you, even the mention of this weapon brings back nostalgia. However, judging by Terraria's surge of new players around the 1.4 update, it wouldn't surprise me if this was your first time hearing of it. Either way, let's take a look at how its remastered version from the Consolaria mod performs today. But before we jump into it, if you enjoyed the vid, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe as it truly helps out the channel. Alrighty, let's see how you can get this thing. Similar to the old days, you'll be required to defeat Ocram to get your hands on this weapon. To summon the boss, you'll need to head to your post-spawn Terra dungeon and gather 15 bones dropped from skeletons and 5 ectoplasm dropped from dungeon spirits. With this collected, you'll also require 5 souls of might, sight and fright from your mechanical bosses, which you'll probably have lying around already. With all of this, head to your nearest altar to craft your suspicious looking skull, and when you're ready, during night, activate it to summon the one and only Ocram. To be honest, I can't really remember the original fight too well, as it's been a good 5 years since I last played on the 360. Nevertheless, I found this version quite easy, and with a weapon like the Flare-On, I managed to take it down in no time at all. Actually getting the Tizona can be a nuisance though, as at least with this mod, it has a low chance of dropping from the treasure bag, as opposed to being crafted like back in the day. So let's just hope good old RNG can be on your side. Alright, with the Tizona obtained, let's see what it can do. While the original Tizona was actually quite a boring weapon, simply swinging and inflicting the bleeding debuff, Consolaria's version tries to enhance its functionality, now firing cursed skulls that inflict the spectral flames debuff upon contact with enemies. I found its DPS to be rather high for this stage of the game, and this was further increased during the multi-target test, due to having the ability to pierce a single target. So what's it like against the real deal? Well, actually it gets even better, as the cursed skulls actually home onto targets. And while this was hard to see against this fragile group of mummies, the effect's usefulness dramatically increases against tankier enemies like these biomimics. The damage is just crazy high, and the homing makes every shot on target. So you're probably wondering now, what about bosses? And well, Consolaria's version really seems to hate Golem, absolutely destroying its health in less than a minute. The piercing combined with the homing means as long as you're firing near the boss, large quantities of damage will be dealt. And with that, Golem is down. This really put my hopes up for the weapon, and so I wanted to see just how far it can get. So what about the Cultist, a boss that is usually quite resistant to homing weapons? And well, it seems despite this, the Tizona's damage was high enough to make this more than a viable option for this boss. And of course the homing means you can keep well clear of the boss's hitbox, giving you much more time to dodge attacks. And similar to Golem, in a surprisingly short amount of time, the Cultist is down. Right, at this point it seems only fair to see what it can do against the Moonlord, a boss that the original Tizona couldn't even imagine. And with the fight well underway, once again, I found the Tizona's homing and damage output extremely effective, and while it's by no means the best weapon to use against the Moonlord, it did a damn good job, and in a slightly above average time, the Moonlord is defeated. I absolutely adored revisiting this weapon and seeing the ways the Consolaria devs implemented it into modern Terraria. As someone who used to always go for the original, much weaker version of this weapon, it was awesome seeing it in a new light. Let me know down below if you're one of the OGs that remember the Tizona, and if not, what are your initial thoughts on it? This has been sockrteez, and I'll see you in the next one.